Chronicles TV on air. We are now live in 3, 2, 1.
Speak the truth now. Kazuma, the truth is shrouded in darkness. A darkness only our clan's greatsword can pierce. Mighty Karuma, twist thy head and wretch them fall, all thy martyr foes. That's the end of the message, it would seem. A haiku poem? Twist thy head. Father, what is Karuma? The name of the Asogi clan's famous sword. The razor-sharp blade known to all, passed down for generations, embodies the Japanese spirit. It's not known to me. The katana sword that was submitted as evidence earlier in the proceedings. The only worn by the prosecution counsel when he confronted Inspector Gregson. Twist thy head. All these procrastinations are beginning to try my patience. Hold it! Twist thy head. Is this the head? Mighty Karuma, twist thy head and watch them fall, all thy mortal foes. That's the proper way to use the sword, is it? Maybe I should try it. It hurts my neck, that's the trouble. Mr. Naruhodo, if I might make a suggestion, I think perhaps it doesn't mean your head. Oh! I once studied the history and development of the katana some time ago, and I'm sure you're probably aware the sword's head is the part of the very end of the hilt. It's written as head in Japanese, but it's pronounced as kashira, I believe. Kashira. So Mr. Asogi's words really mean twist the butt of the hilt. You don't think... Look what's inside. Is that a tightly wound parchment? It's the paper! Scarlet ink! It's written in scarlet ink! I penned this, my last will and testament, in the final moments before my inevitable and willing death. This is it, isn't it? Mr. Naruhodo, look at the signature at the end. Clint von Zeeks, and the date, 10 years ago, and on that fateful night. So for 10 years, it's been silently concealed inside Karuma and nobody knew. The last will and testament, Lord Clint Vincent, whatever. Wait, oh my goodness, look at this. This is unbelievable. Can we read the thing? Back it up. What do we got? Oh, I guess we're gonna read. Okay. All these blah 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 blah. As the presiding judge, I have been accommodating as possible the will of the courtroom. However, despite all that, no new information has come to light. In pursuit of justice, Lord Clint von Zeeks tragically lost all sense of morality. When he murdered his former mentor, clearly he was already devoid of normal...
Objection!
How dared you? I refuse to believe that of my brother. Too much time has passed. We cannot ever hope to know more than we do now. Especially since the alleged will that he penned in his final moments appears to have been lost forever. Lord Strongheart, you appear to be in something of a hurry to wrap things up. I wonder why. We heard you state time and again during these proceedings that everything you did was in the interest of protecting British law and order. And I stand by that. Without the Reaper, we could never have achieved the reduction of the crime capital as we've seen. What about Inspector Gregson then? And Dr. Wilson. They were no criminals. You used them to achieve your ends, and then you had them killed. However you dressed it up, there was nothing fair about that. Lord Strongheart, what exactly is it that you're hiding? Dr. Mikotoba, were you not quietly withdrawn after the translation of your former associate's will? In this courtroom, no argument carries weight unless it's supported by evidence. And it would seem that the defense has no more evidence to present. In which case, I hereby order all discourse from the proceedings to be struck from the record. This is my last chance. Mr. Naruhodo, I have to present some decisive evidence now or it's all over. But can I? Wait, my lord. As it happens, the defense does have evidence to present. What? Don't be absurd. There is nothing of relevance remaining from the time.
Objection!
It's high time you realize something, my lord. This gentleman has an uncanny habit of producing evidence at the final hour. That had escaped everyone else's attention. Nonsense. What is it, Ryunosuke? What do you have? I dare say, the final decisive piece of evidence that will reveal the whole truth about this rotten lake. How can you? Decisive. Well, it would appear there's no escaping it now, my lord. Let it be so then. Present whatever you think you have to settle the decade-old enigma, if you're capable. What exactly is the evidence that the defense claims to be decisive?
Take that!
There is a single piece of evidence that can clarify what really happened 10 years ago. The last will and testament of Lord Clint von Zeeks. Ha! A wonderful astute observation, I'm sure. But in case it had escaped your notice, that document was lost long ago. That's right, it was. Only, I have it right here, discovered just moments ago. Impossible! That can't be! Everything that happened comes back to this will. This document is the key that will unlock the entire mystery. Urgh. My brother's last will and testament. Where did you find that? It was rolled up inside this. Inside Kuruma? The ultimate weapon Genshin Asogi obtained has lain undisturbed in the hilt of the sword all these years, just waiting for the right time to emerge and reveal the truth. The signature seal certainly looked official. My god, it's true. That's my brother's handwriting. There can be no mistake. I forbid the content of the document from being read out loud. Do you hear me? I strictly forbid it. You can't do that, my lord. This document could explain everything. The document could literally destroy the meaning of justice in this country. I demand that you hand it over to me at once. Why? What are you trying to hide? Could it be that you already know what's written on this page? What are you implying? Court is adjourned with immediate effect. Clear the courtroom.
Objection!
Do that, my lord, and you'll suffer a fatal blow as Lord Chief Justice. I beg your pardon? Forcibly ending a trial without good reason. And not any trial. A closed trial by order of Her Majesty, the Queen. To defy the monarch's will is treason. Lord Clint von Zeeks really did pen a will that day. It's exactly as the young Japanese man said. Read it out loud, now. We have the right to hear what's in the will. A right and duty. Well, my lord. It would rather appear as though proceedings aren't going to go quite as you hoped. You fools. Go ahead, Ryunosuke, read it. The prosecution gives it full support. Very well then. No, for God's sake. And there it is. I penned this, my last will and testament, in the final moments before my inevitable willing death. The hour is 11 p.m. and I sit at my writing desk in my office. My good friend Asogi stands at my shoulder. He has expressed his intent to invoke the dying ritual of the duel, that I may depart this world with honor. an honor of which I am utterly undeserving. The Japanese are a truly merciful people. I, Clint von Zeeks, Lord of the Manor of the Van Zeeks Estate, hereby confess to the following. I am the killer who has come to known as society as the Professor, guilty of 4 counts of murder. I will not here discourse the corruption rifle among the aristocracy, which is to me, as one of them, so apparent. However, 6 months ago, I took the life of a member of the House of Lords at the heart of the depravity. A demon who habitually sacrificed the common man to further his own interests, abusing his position of power. The law is important against such vile avarice. Only a fellow demon can rid society of this menace. Oh, so that's the definition of that. That demon was my quarry, upon whom I am willing to set my great hound. But though I am a hunter of some experience, I am a poor felon, it seems. My guilt was at once recognized by another, and I became subject to his extortion. He held over me to threat of exposing my wicked crimes to my beloved wife and brother. Under that threat, I have done this man's bidding for months now, killing those he demanded I kill. As I watched my former mentor perish before my eyes in the jaws of the hound I commanded, I realized that I had lost the last shred of my decency within me and sunk to the level of a wild beast. There is no path back to the light, be it I or my dear friend Asogi who dies this night. I am eternally damned. To my extortioner, male Strongheart, may you feel the jaws of the beast at your throat every time you swallow. You wanted him killed so he'd be the next Chief Justice. So now we know, yes, Clint von Zeeks was a murderer, but somebody was directing him and naming his victims. His extortioner, Lord Male Strongheart. It was you! Lord Strongheart, a moment ago, you claimed that what the court just heard would destroy justice in the country, but you weren't trying to protect justice at all. All you were trying to do was conceal the secret of your true nature and the countless lives you sacrificed up till now. It just didn't make sense to me. The third victim, the former Lord Chief Justice, was my brother's benefactor and a man of lofty principles. As I said, Clint had no possible reason to kill the man. But you did, didn't you, Lord Strongheart? To eliminate the man who stood between you and the office you set your sights on. So you used your own hunting dog, Lord Clint von Zeeks, to take him down. It had to be done. London's unsavory shadows are deep, and the arm of the laws fails to reach our depths. Crime must be cut off the roots, but the Lord Chief Justice of the time couldn't see that. He was weak. Lofty principles, you say? Tantamount to the cowardice if you ask me. Which is why I took his place. In order to fight the crime he was allowing to spread like wildfire. Excuse me. By murdering the man? The Reaper, the Professor, the name makes no difference. I have explained countless times already, it was all done for the furtherance of law and order in London.
Objection!
Are you going to legitimize the murder of my father now too? Ah, Genshin Asogi. Well, that was unfortunate. I fully intended to send him back to Japan as we agreed. I don't believe you. It was you, wasn't it? You killed him. No, it wasn't me who took your father's life. Then who? On the night following his mock execution, I went to Logate Cemetery at 3 in the morning with Jigoku. Judge Jigoku? There had to be a collaborator on the Japanese side to manage Asogi's treatment after his reputation. Jigoku had a fierce ambition. It made him too easy to manipulate. 10 years ago, after he stood trial for the destruction of the witness stand, I had words with him. When I told him the position of Minister of Foreign Affairs could be his, he couldn't agree fast enough. Say Shishiro, you fool. As you know, Asogi escaped the prison in a closed casket and subsequently interred. We attempted to dig him out of his grave before he ran out of air. But sadly, all did not go to plan. He came out, then there was that guy. There was an unexpected visitor to the cemetery with his own ideas about digging up graves. A man who witnessed what nobody was supposed to see. In notes Streber. Of course, I knew grave robbers frequently loud in cemeteries, but that grave on that particular night. Last, if people find out the convicts really wasn't executed, the scandal will rock the very foundation of the Empire. Then what do we do? Shoot him. Mr. Jigoku, shoot Asogi at once. He can't live what has happened. He has to go. What are you talking about? He had an agreement. You promised him he could return to Japan. Everything has changed now. If the truth comes out because of this, both of us would be finished. Forever. Jigoku shot Asogi from the shadows. The grave robber was so close. The blood sprayed over his coat. He fled as fast as his legs could carry him. Then Jigoku and I put Asogi's body back in the grave from which he just emerged. When I later learned of the waxwork models present at the scene as well, I made her swear 2 things. Never to remove the professor's mask, and never to speak of the events of that night. And with that, the secret was buried along with Asogi's corpse. So, now you know what really happened in Lowgate Cemetery that night. No objections? We're done. It was Jigoku, your Japanese acquaintance, who killed Asogi in the end, you see? He claimed to be the man's friend, but when push came to shove, he pulled the trigger. Just before Mr. Jigoku left the courtroom earlier, he said that the assassin exchange proposal was a demand from his British counterpart, not a request. So you coerced him too, using what happened in the graveyard. By that time, Jigoku was the Minister of Foreign Affairs, negotiating international treaties from Britain. You can imagine what would happen if I came to light he murdered a compatriot 10 years earlier. He would have lost everything. I merely reminded him of that. How do you sleep at night? These past 10 years I've fought tirelessly with the darker recesses of London criminal underworld, and I've used whatever means necessary to ensure that justice prevails and law and order reign supreme. That couldn't be further from the truth. The fact is, you haven't fought crime at all. How dare you? I saved Clint von Zeeks from dishonor and his death. Well, it's behind the scenes. You systematically buried anyone who stood in your way. I forgot who was talking. And then you made my father take the blame. It was unavoidable. It was only to protect our justice system and public orders. Let's not forget the others you had killed as well. Setting the defendant up as a reaper to cover up the truth behind the murders of countless more. That's enough! Do you have any idea the conniving that led to the acquaintance of those wretched criminals? We have to fight fire with fire. Our courts can't function without a reaper. Can't you see all I've done in this country? This has been my struggle. Objection. You've done nothing. It's Lord von Zeeks who will work tirelessly and justly in court, was enduring the disgrace of the Reaper name. Inspector Gregson, fraught with anguish for having sullied his hands through a desire to do the right thing. Not to mention Genshin Asogi, who risked his life going in pursuit of the truth you try to hide. No, the darker recesses of London underworld were largely filled by you. You little. When will you get it through your thick skulls? That it was all for the queen of the country? I'm tiring of that excuse. You've consistently twisted the truth for bargaining power to make others do your bidding. Nothing more. People who willingly twist the truth and coerce others have no right to call themselves part of the judiciary. I strongly suggest you don't ever talk to justice again. And then he screams. again. Flash. No flash? Goddamn. He's frozen. Frozen in time. Never mind. What? Well, well, well. Dear me, my good fellows. Dear me. A well-deserved round of applause, I think, for a quite marvelous performance. What are you talking about? Those delightfully grave expressions, the beautifully pronounced Queen's English. Really, our friends from Far East are quite the picture of industriousness. You fraud! Keep your mockery! Please, don't misunderstand. It really is exactly as you both said. What are you trying to say? I have copied the darkest recesses of London underworld, and how did you put it? Done nothing? I confess it's a little embarrassing to have it pointed out quite so starkly, but yes, I really have done nothing, which means I can be indicted for nothing. No? What? It's true. Personally, I have committed no crime. I've merely been surrounded by fools, who's acted very rashly indeed. You can't get away with that. You constantly preyed on people's weakness. And what? Threatened him? Are you sure there wasn't just bargaining? I would like to address all good lords, ladies, and gentlemen of the judiciary here present. You all know these darker recesses in our great capital, and deep down I believe you also know that to fight those who dwell there requires at least someone to occupy the darkness ourselves. So let me appeal to your good sense now. Consider the situation with me. If this catalog of horrifying revelations were to become common knowledge among the 6 million inhabitants of London, what might happen? Isn't that why it's a closed trial? To learn that the infamous murder of royals and nobles was respected by the aristocracy himself. The evidence was fabricated in the scapegoat trial and secret negotiations, blah 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 blah. And now he's gonna say what will happen to the freaking country if war gets out. That it was all masterwork of the Lord Chief Justice himself. If the general public of Britain knew the truth, all faith in the police and prosecutor in office would be completely lost. Without a doubt, public order in the capital would completely break down, be cast to the lawless days of the last century. Precisely as it was 100 years ago, when 1 in 10 population were criminals. To think what would accomplish since then, a public policing force, a comprehensive set of laws? And if we want to continue to protect the era of law and order, I say again, we must at times occupy the darkness ourselves. We have successfully identified and apprehended the man responsible for taking Inspector Gregson's life. That is all that would expect of the trial. All these other matters that have been discussed will be eliminated from the minutes of these proceedings and these interests of preserving law and order, and to protect Her Majesty the Queen, of course. Well, my lords and ladies and gentlemen, what say you? Oh, great. Are you hearing this? This is the will of the British judiciary. For your rousing response, friends, I express my heartfelt gratitude. Therefore, in accordance with the overwhelming wishes of the court, the record shall be erased. You have to respect the man's ability to turn the situation to his favor. Lord Strongheart really is a mastermind of manipulation. You've complicitly proven his guilt, yet he still managed to evade justice. I just don't know what we can do. Ryunosuke, it looks like the trial really is going to come to an end now. I'm almost out of options. I think there's really only one path left open to me. Objection? Use evidence? I mean, we got the thing that we have. Yes, as I know only too well, the only thing that carries any weight in court is hard evidence. But, Mr. Naruhodo, what evidence is there to use at this stage in the trial? I have an idea. I don't know whether anything will come out of it, but if there was ever a time for using this particular item we have among the evidence, it's now.
Take that!
Oh my, yes, Mr. Sholmes asked if you had that with you earlier. We expose all Lord Strongheart's wrongdoing now. I have no doubt that Mr. Sholmes had already deduced exactly how the truth would unfurl. So I think it must be time for the great detective to take center stage, don't you? Yes, absolutely. Let's take the end by the ears then. Heave and heave. Alright, here goes. Heave! Ow, 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 ow! My dear fellows, must I remind you every time, a gentle tug will suffice. Mr. Sholmes, you're looking in quite the wrong direction, Mr. Naruhodo, because I'm over here. Ah! Mr. Naruhodo, he's... hologram. It's Mr. Sholmes. I wasn't expecting you back, Sholmes. Delighted to be here again, Lord Strongheart. What is the meaning of this? Bailiff, seize him. Put the men in irons. That is a closed courtroom. You've been warned once already, man. What the? We can't get all of them, my lord. We just go right through him. Hey, I'm afraid your efforts are wasted, you see? The great detective you see before you is composed entirely of light and shadow. An image, if you will. Mr. Naruhodo, I must congratulate you on your fine deduction. Mr. Sholmes? What on earth is this? Are you familiar? I wonder what the invention known as the telephone. Well, yes. I hear that some public telephones have been installed recently in Tokyo. The sound of the speaker voice is converted to an electric signal and transmitted instantly in another place. Quite. Sounds are transmitted, so could not images keep them company? I'm amused. Iris and I did some modest experimentation to develop such a device specifically for this very day. Modest experimentation, Mr. Sholmes? What a must description. And someone incidentally, I thought we might just as well instrument an entire scene. Someone incidentally, Mr. Sholmes? Now, you're just being modest. Do you mean to say you're not actually here, Sholmes? Ah, I knew my trusted partner would have no trouble at grasping the concept. Except he's grasping the stand to steady himself after your shock arrival. Poor father, I would hope that he might have forewarned, being the great detective's great partner. Leave my courtyard at once! Get out, or I swear to you! Dear me, you on the other hand, Lord Strongheart, appear to have a very poor grasp of the situation. Allow me to reiterate, I am not here, which would, I hope, lead naturally to one asking. Where exactly are you? The very question I was awaiting. I am at present enjoying the air in rather splendid garden. A garden? Not just any garden, you understand. A garden at Buckingham Palace. With Her Majesty? You can't be. Buckingham Palace? What's Buckingham Palace, Mrs. Sato? I never heard of it. Do you ever read the news, Mr. Naruhodo? Mr. Sholmes? Is Iris with you there? Ah, well now, Iris is currently enjoying some tea. With Her Majesty. Her Majesty? Not just any Her Majesty, you understand. Her Majesty, the Queen of the British Empire. What? What? What on earth is all of this about? Buckingham Palace? Is Her Majesty the Queen's residence in London, Mr. Naruhodo? Order in court. I demand immediate silence. Her Majesty the Queen? You can't be. I mean, no. This is some sort of unforgivable disaster trickery by a third-rate detective, that's all. Unforgivably disaster for trickery? What a description! Our closed court session attended by the elite members of the judiciary is a rare event. I presumed that Her Majesty would be more than a little curious about the proceedings, so I decided to show her everything, from start to finish. Huh? You showed her? Indeed. By dint of Herlock Sholmes' remote cinematography, whatever.
You, meddling. This is some kind of nightmare.
Just as I appear to be standing before you, regaling you to talk with my latest invention. No doubt you've inferred that the reverse is also true.
You don't mean...
Her Majesty has seen and heard every moment of the proceedings. I assume there were no objections? After all, every trial in this country is conducted under the inspires of Her Majesty, as you know.
You.
I confess, I am quite impatient to hear Her Majesty's opinion about the unequivocal disastrous trickery in which you've been engaged over the past 10 years.
No, I was merely...
Oh, so sorry to keep you all waiting. Vicky and I had so much to talk about. Iris, there you are. In fact, I have a little message here from Her Majesty.
A message?
Well then, if everyone is sitting comfortably, ahem. Forthwith and with immediate effect, all authority previously afforded to Male Strongheart is hereby revoked forevermore. Furthermore, he will be prosecuted for crimes against his country in a public trial by jury in the coming days.
So, it seems that Her Majesty doesn't believe we need to fight fire with fire. Justice in this country needn't be administered from the shadows at all. Male Strongheart, the darkness you fostered to conceal your despicable actions these last 10 years in this past now. It's a thing in the past now. After today, your brand of law and order has no future, because no longer are you Lord Chief Justice. In the eyes of the law and Her Majesty the Queen, you are nothing but a criminal. And then he screams. Oh, the scepter's gonna be broken. It's gonna be broken. And hit him in the head. I bet. It's broken, I told you. But I didn't hit him in the head. Okay, that hit him. Guilty. Oh boy. That's gonna fall on top of him. Hey, that faced through. He's guilty. Oh no. He died. He dead. Okay, he survived. Oh, he dead. He dead. He dead. Oh. Never mind. He survived. Yo, burnt up, crisp, chopped liver. Lord Clint von Sykes left a will in which he confessed to everything. When those words came out of Asoki's mouth, in the deranged me complete me, I knew I must do everything in my power to contain the situation. But I couldn't find the damn document. I searched his cell, but it wasn't there. Which precipitated the jailbreak plot, I presume? What do you mean? The need to attain the will was all-consuming. I was sure that I facilitated Asoki's escape. He would have emerged with a will somewhere in his person. But despite searching his limp body in the cemetery that night, it still eluded me. It never crossed my mind that it was concealed in the sword's hilt. Air Judge, where you at? What pains me now is that my brother left this world without a word to me. I'm sorry, Lord Von Zeeks. In point of fact, I think perhaps this isn't the case. Sorry? How can that be? There is more to his last will and testament.
What? More? As I confront the prospect of my demise, I feel bitter regret for my younger brother. Beric, you have always looked up to me, and now you follow in my footsteps to become a prosecutor. It is my fervent wish that my unspeakable deeds should not hinder your advancement. I ask not for understanding, for none could understand my depravity. I ask for only forgiveness.
Asogi is a fine detective and a hunter worthy of respect. He has agreed to honor my final two wishes. The first is that this document survives. The second, I cannot commit to paper. I have confessed my sins to my wife. May she find resolution in my death. With my eternal gratitude to my Japanese friend, I risk my quill. Clint von Zeeks.
Clint.
Male Strongheart. You colluded with Seishizuo Jigoku in a criminal plot so immense it spanned the oceans. And you cold-heartedly murdered all those who knew the truth about what happened 10 years ago. Well, why did you set about that now, a whole decade later?
To ascend the very peak. These last 10 years made me realize being the Lord Chief Justice wasn't enough. Short of becoming Her Majesty's Attorney General, I could have no real power to effect the changes needed in this country. And for that promotion, I needed to ensure no remnants of the past remained. How could you? I liked everything to run smoothly in the exact manner that I prescribed, like a well-oiled machine. And I was just a step away. And for your ambition to succeed, did you even bother to count the number of brilliant people you've killed?
Ah, Mr. Reaper, are you not forgetting something?
Such as?
You very much adopted your usual prosecutor-like demeanor in the proceedings now. But the reality of the situation is that you are the defendant in this trial. However, the presiding judge would appear to have fallen from the bench, as it were. May I suggest, therefore, that we entrust the final judgment to the old friend?
My lord, as a member of the judiciary, I have been following the proceedings from the gallery. As I must say, I shan't ever forget the extraordinary battle between good and evil that I witnessed here today. The darkness that blighted justice in our land these past 10 years has at last been dispelled, thanks in no small part to the efforts of our bright young star from the East. Defense Counsel Naruhodo.
Yes, my lord.
On behalf of everyone present in the Old Bailey, give you my heartfelt thanks. You are too kind, my lord. The first time I faced you in court, just under a year ago now, I had the faintest of intimidations that if British justice so warped and twisted over its long history was fine to no change. This might just be the man to do it.
What?
But at that time, I wouldn't allow myself to acknowledge the possibility. I couldn't overcome my hatred of the Japanese after the circumstance of my brother's death. Mr. Naruhodo, allow me to apologize for countless discourtesies on my part. You are a lawyer of boundless talent.
Ah, Lord von Zeeks.
When I first arrived in Great Britain, I was literally a nobody, certainly not a lawyer. The truth is, my fortunes have entirely been made by the miraculous people I've met. My best friend, Kazuma Asogi, who led me here to Britain in the first place. My loyal and ever-patient judicial assistant, Miss Susato, who helped me study to become a lawyer.
the brilliant Lord von Zieks, who never fails to challenge his Nipponese rival. And not to mention, the exceptional master of logic and reasoning, who showed me the true art of deduction, Mr. Sholmes. Saving the best for last, Mr. Naruhodo? What a relief! I'm well aware that without all these people's help and support, I wouldn't be where I am today. The truth is a guiding light that always leads to happiness. I've lived by that principle for a long time now, but actually, it's not true. The truth can also cause great pain, sometimes even leave people on the brink of despair. And for that reason, there are those who feel the need to hide the truth, who do it instinctively even. But as soon as we allow our eyes to set on something other than the truth, the darkness takes hold. And from there it grows, until eventually it makes us blind the guiding light of the truth altogether. So that's why it's my belief that we must all resolve never to avert our eyes from what is just and true. So that we can continue to walk straight in a narrow path ahead. Well, I must excuse myself now. But before I go, Mr. Naruhodo, let me compliment you on a grand opus. What? Without your beautifully composed case against Lord Strongheart, Her Majesty would have been unable to act. Thanks to you and your fellows, the haunting undertones corrupting British justice system has been silenced. Thank you very much. So, until our paths cross again somewhere? Well then, it would appear that this long trial has finally come to an end. My apologies for any anxiety caused, my lord. I'm quite sure we shall meet again here in the courtroom before long, Prosecutor Berg von Zieks. In conclusion of these proceedings, I hereby declare the defendant Berg von Zieks. Let's go! That is all. Court is adjourned.